This is Beyond the Big Screen podcast with your host, Steve Guerra.
Today we have a really exciting bonus episode from a conversation I had with fellow Parthenon Podcast Network Josh Cohen. Josh is the host of the Eyewitness History Podcast. In this episode, we discuss some of the interesting aspects of Quentin Tarantino's first foray into the historical fiction genre in his alternative World War II film, Inglorious Bastards. If you join up on Patreon, you will get more exclusive content just like this. I hope you enjoy and definitely subscribe so you can get all the new full episodes early and ad-free. If you want to learn more, you can just head over to beyondthebigscreen.com. You can also support Beyond the Big Screen on Patreon by joining on patreon.com/Beyond the Big Screen. And this really helps keep this whole podcast sustainable for a long time in the future, and you get many great benefits. Benefits include advertisement-free content, bonus content, and early access. The bonus content is great too, just like this episode. I'll feature outtakes from episodes and live streaming episodes. If you join at the executive producer level, you'll become just that, an executive producer of Beyond the Big Screen. You'll be able to develop ideas for upcoming episodes, help find great guests, and of course have your name mentioned at the beginning or end of each episode. You won't just be a supporter, you will be a key member of the team. If you ever have any questions, comments, or feedback, just feel free to send me an email at steve@a2zhistorypage.com or follow us on social media, and I will see you next time Beyond the Big Screen. Did they say in the film when this approximately takes place? That first scene, they say, happens in 1941, where we'll meet him eventually, Hans Londa, played by the wonderful Christoph Waltz. That was in 1941. Shoshana, one of the lead characters, she looks young there, but I don't think they say how much time passed between when that scene happens and then Rains puts together the Inglorious Bastards. Do they say it?
Not as I recall. Maybe our viewers can fact check the two of us on this, but I believe it's generally presumed that at least a few years passed, because Shoshana goes from being effectively a refugee, a Jewish person on the lam, to becoming an owner of a theater. And the way she gets this theater is somewhat mysterious. She says that it was left to her by her aunt and her uncle, but it must be remembered that she's giving this as a story to Friedrich Zoller, a German officer, in fact, and a war hero, which I'm sure we'll get into. And so it's tough to tell how much of that should really be believed.
And it must have been presumably before the D-Day invasion in 1944, because France is still occupied by the Germans. So it's sometime in between 1941 and mid-1944.
Right. That was where I placed it. That was the one thing I knew, since it was still occupied France, was that it was before D-Day. So it had to have been before any real true blue serious involvement by us Americans.
I'll take a moment to just even reel it back further to what did you think? The very first scene was powerful, where Londa, like you say, that Londa is polite and is somebody, I don't know where I saw this or read this, but it said even the devil can have an angelic glow or something like that. But so even somebody who's completely evil to the core can appear to be good. And on every, how polite he was and how, but what his real point there is to find Jews who have escaped.
Yep.
And he knows that the farmer is hiding Jews in his farmstead. He knows it. The farmer knows he knows it, and Londa is just going to keep giving him enough rope to hang himself with it. And he finally gives the farmer the choice: either we're going to kill your whole family and we're still going to kill them. And to put that choice on film as your first thing that you see is really gut-wrenching.
Yeah, not much to argue with there. Yeah, I want to talk about that scene if we may. That opening scene was phenomenal. So I'm not even kidding. I remember seeing it in theaters. You will recall the first like 10, 15 minutes of that movie are in French. um, I mean, it's on for a good little while before they speak a word of English. And I'm not kidding. When I first saw it in theaters, I thought they put the wrong reel of film into the projector. Well, because it just wasn't what you were expecting, and you're right. Hans Londa comes up, is this the property of Monsieur Lapetite? It's a pleasure to meet you, Monsieur Lapetite. And he shakes his hand and may you please invite me in your house so we may have a discussion. Strings him along in this way, asks for milk, which becomes a bit of a recurring theme for Landa, and a very interesting analogy, metaphor, whatever we want to call it, between a squirrel and a rat, and why you find one repulsive and you don't know why, and you like the other and you don't know why, when they both actually look fairly similar. And he uses this analogy for why one might hate the Jews, which I thought was very interesting. Obviously, for the goofballs out there, obviously I'm not agreeing with him. But it was a very interesting Tarantinian way of putting that across. And then at the very end, he just goes in for the kill, and it's just a body blow. I mean, you're sheltering enemies of the state, are you not? You're hiding them underneath the floorboards, aren't you? And it just goes right there. And the way the music comes in towards the end, where he ushers in what they think the Dreyfuses. What the Dreyfuses think are the women, but they're actually the Nazi officers. It was phenomenal. And by the way, that's where we meet Emmanuel Memieux as well. She's the one person that gets away from this slaughter, and she runs. Then we next see her as the owner of the theater.
Londa lets her get away.
Yes,
he sees her. He could have shot her or has sent out the other guards or whatever to go catch her, and he doesn't. Why doesn't he?
Yeah, it's a very interesting choice. He delights in the slaughter of his family. He delights in the slaughter of her family. And yeah, she's running in an open field. She's an open target. You got to believe Londa, a soldier like him, could have made that shot. Has her literally in his sights, leaves the gun off and says, "Au revoir, Shoshana." Why doesn't he pull that trigger? I don't have an answer for that, other than it's an appeal to his sadistic nature. Because one thing about him is I wonder if his sadism and his psychopathy overrules everything else about his job, because his job surely would have been to kill her.
Yeah.
Right.
But then he has a couple of opportunities to kill her, and he could have called her out when they were meeting with, was it Goebbels in the cafe? He could have called her out. There was another opportunity too. I almost wonder if he somehow planned it, that she would take over the theater. Somehow the movie would get changed from the big theater in Paris to this small one. What if he was behind the whole plot?
Ooh.
Knowing that the Allies are going to win, because that's what we see at the end. He makes the deal. He knows that the bastards it was his call, essentially, to set forward the plan that winds up killing Hitler and Goebbels and the
Boring and Gorman.
Yeah, he's the one who he could have said yes or no at any point, and he's the one who got it actually done. I wonder if he was actually the driving force behind that whole plan.
Now that's extremely interesting, because I mean, I'll quote Landa's words back to you. He even says, if I don't pick up this phone and alert the theater, it's as if I'm causing Hitler's death even more than yourselves. In addressing Brad Pitt as Alderain and B.J. Novak as the little man, Udovich. Well, no, that's very interesting, because I mean, he gets carved up at the end, but he makes off pretty good. He kind of makes out like a bandit, the scar aside. That's very interesting. I wonder if he could have been the mastermind behind it. Maybe he knew the aunt and the uncle. Maybe that's why she was able to get such safe passage, because the one plot hole that I never could quite square up in my brain was how a refugee, someone with a past and a known Jew and all that stuff, could come into possession of a theater even under an alias in occupied France. Like, how does that happen exactly? Especially with someone like the Jew hunter at the helm of things. That doesn't quite, that dog doesn't quite hunt with me. So I wonder if Londa could have just been the mastermind behind it.
It makes so much sense, because it almost feels like Tarantino set us up at certain points for things that are unbelievable. Like how could Shoshana, who was, what did they even, I think they said she was a 17-year-old girl or something.
19, I think.
So a 19-year-old girl, and then she just shows up in Paris and takes over this theater. Yeah, sure, it's a film and we have to suspend some disbelief, but we also need some reason for that to happen, I think, to make it plausible. Or like in the, another thing that I thought seems so implausible to me is that they thought that Aldo Raines would get by as an Italian. And it's so insane. Of course, Londa knows how to speak perfect Italian and could, he's seen through everything else. Like it's like he has X-ray vision.
So first off, are you going to say it or should I?
Go for it.
Buongiorno.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't speak Italian.
I don't speak. Like I said, third best. Well, and Diane Kruger as the movie star, Bridget Van Hammersmark. I knew I'd get it. There's this throwaway line when she's in the vet's clinic getting her gunshot looked at. Germans don't have a good ear for Italian. I'm like,
Londa.
Yeah. That doesn't. No, I mean, I was able to pick it out, yeah. And I'm no kind of German, let me tell you. So yeah, it makes me strongly suspect. The more I'm thinking about it, I never even considered it, but now I'm thinking about it as you're talking, and it makes more and more sense that Londa was sort of like a puppet master behind these events.
What does that make you think and feel then, that somebody who is as evil as that does something that's really good, ending World War II?
Well,
it's very strange. And then he makes out like a bandit, like you said. What was his deal? He got a house on Nantucket. He got money and
got a house in Nantucket. He got a crap ton of money. Got a Medal of Honor. He did just fine. How does it make me feel? Well, look, there's nothing mysterious about a genius psychopath manipulating a situation. That this isn't news, right? He just happened to do it at a macro, world changing, history changing level. He was with the Nazis until he decided it was no longer convenient for him to be, and then he immediately switched sides. So how does it make me feel? I'm with Aldo Raine on this one. Towards the end of the movie, he says, if you're willing to barbecue the entire high command, that should merit certain considerations, and if that's good enough for the leader of the bastards, then it's probably good enough for me.
And now a brief word from our sponsors. You know what? I think one problem with this movie, and I don't know, maybe it wouldn't be quite Tarantino, but I think we missed too much exposition with the bastards. I feel like I want to get to know them more, and we really don't get to know them at all.
No, I know what you mean, because I wouldn't mind a bit of backstory on Aldo Raine. He definitely looks like he has a story or two. I know I brought it up before. I'd love to know what happened to his neck. I'll bet that's a cool story. The only person that we get any sort of exposition on is Hugo Stiglitz. He gets this whole cool little backstory scene, So yeah, I would have loved to have seen the backstory on Aldo Raine and certainly on the Bear Jew, because I don't think Eli Roth got enough screen time, if I'm being honest. I thought he did a really, really good job He was only in a couple scenes, but I loved him in it. He was great.
For me, that was probably the big problem with this movie, and I wonder what you think is. I think there was too many stories going on that nothing really got the attention to it. And maybe it wouldn't have been a Tarantino movie if it was just really a straight Dirty Dozen of the Inglorious Bastards, of how they trained, and how maybe it would have been just a cliche movie, but that would have been a really good movie. What do you think of that?
Yeah. I know what you mean. There is part of me that says that just isn't Tarantino's style. None of his movies are really straightforward. They all have their own just a web of different characters and different situations and plots, and they're interwoven. I mean, Pulp Fiction has like freaking 6 plots going on at once. And Inglorious Bastards, you have Hans Londa doing his thing. You have the Bastards. You have the theater. Emmanuel Mimieux and Jean, the black projectionist.
Yeah.
And of course you have the Nazis ad hoc random doing their thing. Could it have done well as a standalone film that was just on the Bastards and didn't veer off? I'm sure it would have been perfectly fine. They were compelling characters under Tarantino's direction. I'm sure it's it's absolutely a movie I would have gone and seen, and it's probably a movie I would have loved. But yeah, I just don't see it as Tarantino style. If it was Tarantino doing that, where you had a bunch of prose acting, a bunch of exposition acting as the back engine to this plot, the movie would have been 5 hours long, because he would have done it with every single character. By the way, wouldn't we love to have some exposition on Hans Landa?
Oh yeah, he could have been his own movie himself easily.
Yeah, absolutely. And this might be irrelevant, but hopefully it's at least interesting. The officer chooses the character that the officer has is King Kong that they're meant to guess, and they run through this whole question of was I brought to America in chains? Was this trip fortunate to me, not for you? And there's this whole thing. Am I from the jungle? And he first says, am I the story of the black people in America? And they say no. And then he immediately goes, oh, then it must be King Kong. And I thought that was really interesting. I don't quite know what that says. I'd love your thoughts, Steve, about what that looks like as an analogy, or it just seemed like a very interesting point of dialogue.
I wonder if, in a way, Tarantino's trying to show a dichotomy, or the Nazis who are killing Jews, but still have strong feelings about the Americans who had mistreated African Americans for so many years. That's people, it's showing that people aren't completely black and white, and that they have these different ideas floating around in their mind. Can you be a Nazi scumbag, but still see the injustice being done by somebody else?
So let me see if I can wrap that one for us. So can the Nazi see the injustice being done by someone else? Yes, but perhaps it's because they're jealous that they don't get to benefit from this injustice that's being done. And how I get there is earlier in the movie, there's a scene where Gables directly says, well, yeah, of course the Americans always win the Olympics. Every medal that they win can be measured in Negro sweat. So I wonder if there's a sort of almost envy because they didn't get to inflict this pain on Black Africans, but also couldn't benefit from the fruits of their labor.
Yeah.
And there might be a slight nod to the whole Jesse Owens thing in there as well.
You could also see too the moral ambiguity again, or not the moral ambiguity, the moral blind side that people have, and where somebody like Goebbels he's 360 evil. Maybe this other guy is, well, of course, what I'm doing is righteous and I'm completely right. What you're doing is evil. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so we're still on the officer in the bunker,
Yeah,
right?
that officer, he thinks, hey, I'm completely morally righteous. And these Americans are the ones who are doing the really bad stuff.
I think there's a bit of moral righteousness there as well. And then I also think, unlike Londa, who very plainly doesn't believe in the Nazi ideology, doesn't believe in the
he doesn't believe
Reich,
in anything.
Doesn't believe in any of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it ends up saving him, benefiting him greatly, as a matter of fact. Whereas the officer in the bunker believes this, truly believes in these ideas.
Mm-hmm.
When they have the cheers with the scotch, which is the main turning point in that scene, he said, you know, they cheers to ein thousand year Deutsches Reich, 1,000 year German Reich. So yeah, I wonder if it was that sort of I wonder if hubris would be the right word. That sort of commitment to the ideology that may have led to that.
Yeah, somebody like that officer in that tavern scene, he is 100% true believer. Londa is 100% not a true believer in anything. They're both evil, but they're different kinds of evil. Yeah,
I mean, and there's obviously no better evil, but there is lesser evil.
Yeah.
Landa's someone that can be negotiated with. Well, clearly he was negotiated with. And actually on that point, I just stumbled on something. The officer in the tavern, Michael Fassbender says, what's going to happen, you know, General Colonel, you're going to stand up and you're going to walk out those doors with us. No. 999, es glaube nicht. I don't think so. I'm going to, you know, it ends here.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that sort of a commitment that I think ended him there as well.